Hello, and welcome to Unbounded Growth, a podcast that challenges you to grow and become a better version of yourself. My name is Marc-alain, and together with my friend Adam, we share thoughts and ideas from the books that we read and how they enhance our personal growth and development. We also host other readers and leaders. We learn from their experiences through our discussions. Our episodes air every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for listening in, and let's grow together. Unbounded Growth. Hello and welcome back to the Unbounded Growth. Happy Tuesday. My name is Marc-alain and I'm here with my friend and co-host Adam Shabindo. This is episode number 17. We are still talking about the 5 levels of leadership. And today we'll be talking about the downside of level 4. As next week we'll be talking about level 5. We'll be finishing up with that. And then on the 20th, we have our episode. We hear our episode, the interview we had with the educational specialist, Montage Woods, who's been telling us about scholarship, opportunities, purpose, and a lot of great content that will be coming up next week. The week of the 20th, we'll be off for the month of April. And we return for the month of May, of course, for a lot of good and new content. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well, Mark. I'm just excited and seeing that it's almost a year. I believe in May, it's going to be a full year since we've been doing this, and we're going to be kicking off a new season in May as well. So it's very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's been quite an interesting journey where I've personally grown so much since we started. So I'm excited actually to go through this level of leadership. And we can go on and get started.
Absolutely. And if it's your first time here, if you're listening to us from YouTube or watching us from YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video, share with your friends as well. And if you are following us on Spotify, now Anchor and Spotify have finally merged. So there's no more Anchor.fm. Everything is right on Spotify. Yeah. So you can follow us definitely on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. We are on all those platforms as well as Amazon Music. And do not forget, of course, to like, subscribe, and follow us on those platforms as well. If you need more information about us, we are always on www.theunboundedgrowth.com. We're on Instagram, and we are also on LinkedIn. Soon we'll be on Facebook and Twitter. But let's get started and go into it. The 4th level of leadership, people development. This is the part of leadership that takes you to the next level. It takes your leadership to the next level. This is the part of leadership that ensures that those who follow you, that the organization you create or the organization that you lead does not die when you're not there. It ensures the sustainability of the organization that you create. A man once said, I think John Maxwell also might have quoted in that the great success is when there's a successor after your success. Success without a successor is complete failure, because if you spend all your years building up stuff to just see them collapse as soon as you walk away, then you probably need to do a lot of work on your level 4 and start to learn how to raise leaders. So last week we talked about the upside level of level 4 leadership, which is reproduction. And today we'll be talking about a few of the downside level of people development or reproduction. The first one John Maxwell talks about here, it says self-centeredness can cause leaders to neglect people development. The first statement it says
before we move on, Mark, I just wanted to just kind of touch a little bit here on the basically the introduction of why would you have a downside to something that is so great? Because that's actually it's something that's it left me a little bit perplexed. I'm like, well, we know that level 4 leadership is where a lot of people should aspire. We know that the higher you go in your leadership, or the higher you grow in life, the less people are around you, the less people you can relate to. And it's like you're climbing a mountain, and the higher you go, the ground becomes very shaky.
Right.
And the only way you can stay up there is if you're anchored somewhere. And that is how I saw level 4 leadership. On, hey, over here, you are training people. And the more you are training them, they create this support system for you
Mm-hmm.
in such a way that it's not like whenever winds are blowing up there, you are having this foundation, this base that you have created and that is supporting you. But it's kind of just left me a little bit perplexed on why would you have, and that's where actually where I read actually very first sentence that John C. Maxwell said, and I could really relate to it. So like the reason why this has a downside, or would even think of that having a downside, is because it's not easy. It's because it's a very complicated things. Like he said, like you pour yourself into some people and nothing happens, or some people take without giving anything in return. So the downside of doing it comes with a lot of fear for, hey, I can be doing all of this effort, I can be pouring so much into these people, and then in the end, there's no return to this investment, or they will just go away and they will go give back to some other places that would not benefit anything in my organization, and that becomes a danger. And a lot of leaders are really scared of that. So then it's kind of like, yeah, then I was like, I could actually see the wisdom on, yeah, of course it's a great thing and it's an amazing thing because it gives you a support system, but yeah, it can also have a lot of downside to it.
Agree, and I mean to your point, and I saw that I was very, very rushing past that introduction, but it actually sets the ground for actually the discussion that we are going to have again. As you said, why would something this great have a downside? I remember the discouragement that you can really face when you're trying to develop people, and either they don't get to where you expect them to get, or you spend so much time working on them just to see them living. In the
Yeah.
volunteer organization, my church, where I've been working for the last 9, 10 years now, I worked a lot in the media team, and I remember one of the hardest thing about being a volunteer is to find other volunteers, other
Yeah.
volunteers that share your passion, other volunteers that want to put in the work the way you do. And sometimes you're too passionate about what you're doing that it's hard to pass on that fire to other people, because of course they have different agendas. There are certain things that are more important to them than just, spending 4 hours on YouTube just learning how to take better pictures, or learning how to film better, or how to work a mixer. So I remember this one particular year. It must have been 2000. I want to say 2019 and 2020. It was like two of the most devastating years in my volunteering experience. Every single volunteer I worked with graduated from high school and did not want to study in the DFW. So they left,
Oh,
all of
shoot.
them.
Yeah, that's hard.
So think, think about something that I started leading in 2014, 15, where I almost had nobody. Spending 3 to 4 years
Wow.
training people to a point where I almost did nothing. And then losing all of them overnight to a point where it's like, oh, back to square one. And you have to start doing again the things that you've been doing. And that was very challenging for me, which actually kind of discourages you to want to, you say, I'll just do it. I'll just do it if I can be there. But then you realize again, if things are not working because you're not there, then it's probably time to put in some more work. So one of the strategies I actually used just to overcome this was to train people that were much younger. I literally started working with kids that were 9, 10 years old, because I was like, okay, that's at least an 8-year guarantee that they are not leaving. I'll be with
Yeah,
them
I can
here.
feel that.
But
I
that was,
really can feel that.
yeah. But that's
Yeah,
always my little pain and joy story about. And sometimes people walk into a church like, why are you working with kids? I'm like, yeah, I still have them
kids.
for 10 years. so so I have them for 10 years. They can if a dog can learn instructions, I believe a kid is much smarter than a dog, and he can really learn
Yeah.
instructions. And you'd be surprised by how much they learn and how fast they learn, and they grow taller fast too. you know but
Yeah,
anyways,
and they give them a sense of
so
purpose.
exactly,
You give them a
a
sense of
reason to come
purpose
to
like a
church.
very young age. Yeah, exactly. A reason to come to church. Yeah.
So that actually did help a lot. So the first thing that John Maxwell talks about is before we went back to the introduction, I was really talking about is that a self-centeredness can cause leaders to neglect people development. The first statement here, John Maxwell says, maturity is the ability to think beyond yourself, to see things from the perspective of others and place their needs above your own. And that's very tough, to be honest. When you start thinking about people development, I think one of the biggest challenge when you're developing people sometimes is the time it takes and the effort it takes, right? And we all often tend to forget how much time it took us to get to where we are, or how much effort we had to put into getting where we are. And the biggest danger again is if it was much easier for us to get to a certain level, we also have the tendency to believe like, why don't you just understand this? I mean, it's just a button that you click or it's just a line that you write. And often we we want to train people the way we are, not the way they are, right? We're thinking
Yeah.
more about it in a sense of like, oh, if I was learning this afresh, this is what I would do. Neglecting their background, where they're coming from, and what they have experienced, or how much experience they have, right? And of course, we talked about this before. People are different. When you're on a permission level and you're relating to people, you learn different ways that people learn. You learn different ways that people approach their issues, how people think. And you also, as a leader, put the right people in the right seats. You put the right people in the right shoes. You make sure that, hey, is this person the right fit for this job? But then when you don't think about it like that, it can actually be very, very challenging. And again, if you are very selfish and you are very self-centered, then people development can be very, very challenging.
Yeah, it can really hurt you. This past Sunday night, we were having a conversation with a few friends. It's a
Mm,
and just kind of an update. It's really been just challenging since I moved to Dallas to just connect with the community all over here. Of
mm,
course, I know hundreds of people in this city. I try, people I meet every here and there, but it was just very hard to kind of just fit in with a certain group where
mm,
you almost have the same schedule, you go to the same thing, you're pursuing the same type
mm,
of purpose. And
mm,
but this past Sunday, I got to spend some time with a group, and they were very fascinating, amazing conversation. And we were talking about
mm,
basically maturity and emotional maturity, and that's why I feel like this quote here is important. And someone raised
mm,
up a point on empathy being the essence of maturity, the
mm,
fact of looking at things at the other person's perspective. And that's
mm,
just what you just mentioned here, that it's
mm,
so important in leadership that you are not training other people based on you. One thing I've
mm,
understood that I learned, and I learned this by tough experience. My younger brother Goel, when he came to the US, I went through the US education system. And I can
mm,
say I have a few talents. I learn things fast. I can do multiple different things as long I can focus. I have a very short span to focus. I can
mm,
focus in less than 10 minutes on something, and I don't have
mm,
to to spend a lot of time trying to think about or wandering in my mind. But my brother came
mm,
to the US, and I was responsible to guide him and to enroll him in classes and to help him. So I put him through. I mean, he never forgive me for this, but I put him in classes that I combine. Okay, you're gonna take biology, you're gonna take calculus, you're gonna take physics, you're gonna take a whole list of classes that I made
mm,
him take. I made him take all these classes together, an introduction to engineering, because I was like, yeah, you can double major in molecular biology and mechanical engineering, and because I felt like, yeah, this is something that I can do. We went through almost the same education system in Africa.
mm,
We did not have the same level of, though he was, passionate about it. He looks up to me. He see that I've achieved it,
mm,
but he just wasn't where he was supposed to be. And plus, he just got to America. So English was also another challenge he was having that I
mm,
just completely ignored at the time. At the end,
mm,
it actually came like it really didn't work out. He got, I
mm,
think, got a C in his biology class. I mean, of course, he aced calculus, but just that C in his biology class, it did not really make him feel good. And he still blames me for that. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't have enrolled me in a biology class. But I had this whole plan set up on him that lacked a lot of empathy. It was that I was not being very empathetic. And just to move forward here, John C. Maxwell is quoting Gerald Brooks, and he's saying that when you become a leader, you give up the right to think about yourself. So you completely remove, okay, these are the skills that I have, these are the capacities that I have developed, and you start focusing less on yourself and more on how you can contribute to removing the obstacles that everybody else has in learning. And when you focus on those obstacles, and it's also, that's why this level of leadership have to just build up from the first one, because from the very first second, because if you've been really successful at level 2 leadership, then you know your team, you know the obstacle that everyone is facing, and when you are about to empower and give back to that team, you have developed enough of the you've developed enough knowledge of the team, and you've known all the obstacles they might be facing, and you can remove them so they can actually succeed.
That's very true, and I like the point that you mentioned about empathy. I think that's really a big sign of maturity. I was you and I have shared this book that I've been reading, which is almost done. I just been a little bit lazy. I picked up some other books and started reading them, but the book on emotional intelligence, you know, and I was reading this book. Among the first thing it mentions empathy, you know, being an empathetic person, and it gives this example. I think is very pertinent. The way it talks about it. Say, you know, you're driving on the highway and someone cuts you off. Your first temptation, you know, is to go after them, is to, you know, for some people it's easy to just curse them out. It's much easier for you to react to a person cutting you off in traffic, thinking about you, thinking about this person could have caused me an accident. What am I going to do? I'm going to curse them out. I'm going to step out of my car and start fighting them. And then he suggests something else. He said, well, what if you just pause for a second and think to yourself, where is this person going? Maybe he just got a call that their child passed out in class. Maybe he just got a call that his wife has been rushed to the emergency room and he's trying to rush to the hospital, not thinking a lot about what's going on the road and that what it can cause. He's pretty much reacting in a fight or flight reaction. In a fight or flight, he's pretty much having a fight or flight reaction at that point. But until you really pause to think about it, until you really pause to look at it that way, it's kind of hard for you to give the proper response to that person. And I think that's very crucial as leaders to have that empathetic mind, to always think about, you know, what could have been, what could they have been thinking, and what's probably going on in their mind. So Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell has quoted this one a lot, and I've heard Zig Ziglar repeatedly say this, that if you help other people get what they want, they will help you get what you want.
Absolutely.
Level 4 leadership is pretty much about that. It's pretty much about helping people to get to a level where you want them to go, so that they can help you take your organization where you want your organization to go. The second reason here, what John Maxwell says that the reason why people do not do people development is that insecurity can make a leader feel threatened by people development. And if this was the gospel in church, I'll pretty much say amen to this.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much truth in this, that the way insecurity threatens the leader. Insecurity makes the leader think makes the leader make dumb decisions, if I'll put it that way, in a sense where you're like, okay, I'm going to kick this person out of my department without ever thinking that this person can be even the reason why this department is still standing strong, simply because you feel threatened by the person taking your spot or leading you. One strategy I've always tried to use when it comes to my leadership is always to work hard so I can work myself out of the job. Because I've always believed that if I work myself out of my current job, I've worked so well, then the next position or the next promotion will be mine. May not be in the same organization, but maybe in a different organization. May not be in the same place, but maybe in a different place. And I've always believed that as a leader, the harder you work on yourself, the harder you work to become the best, the harder you work for the work to be better, you positioning yourself for the next level in any organization that you ever lead. So insecurity. Insecurity is one of those things that threaten companies today. Employees get fired over insecure leaders. Jobs position are closed over insecurity. Some marriages end over
Absolutely.
insecurity. Whenever one of the spouses or the leader, whoever it is, feels that Adam is going to take my spot, they do everything in their power to stop them from getting there. John Maxwell says here, quoting West, the vice president of Western Seminary, Wayne Smith, he said, no amount of personal competency can compensate for personal insecurity.
Yeah,
And
it
there's just
doesn't matter
so
how
much truth
great
in
you
that.
are. It doesn't really matter how great you are. It's you see, and I'm gonna share this because I'm a Christian, and it has really helped my life. Is that whenever you're insecure, you lack peace.
Mhm,
You are consistently, you don't even sleep at night because you are
mhm,
consistently generating the most negative things that might be happening.
mhm,
And it's really withdraw peace from your
mhm,
life. And it's actually,
mhm,
that's what makes people evil.
mhm,
Insecurity is what brings jealousy, and
mhm,
it's what brings envy of
mhm,
starting to look, okay, you know, you're not insecure of what you have, you are not happy with where you are.
mhm,
And it also makes it hard to put in other people, because
mhm,
I think I had this conversation a few times um, with a few friends a couple years ago, where we were, and not to pick on any community whatsoever, but you see somebody coming from, let's say, Africa and migrate to the US, and they are welcomed in a family or in a place. They stay there, and you just see, of course, they will give them some type of advice and so on.
mhm,
And as soon as they are starting to pick themselves up, there's tension that start building up in the house. There's stuff that start happening, and that is actually like the entire legacy that you have built in helping that person is
mhm,
completely going away just because you are insecure with
mhm,
what he might have achieved that might be better than you, and so on.
mhm,
And John Maxwell put a few reasons here on why,
mhm,
on what makes insecurity so um, what accentuates insecurity.
mhm,
And he talks about ego. And
mhm,
one of the things that I actually took from this, and I feel like uh, it's so relevant. He say, and their goal isn't to make others think more highly of them. It's to
mhm,
get their people to think more highly of themselves.
mhm,
Yeah. So in
mhm,
leadership, when you're trying to basically having a winning mechanism, a way to kind of just get rid of your insecurity in your life
mhm,
or in the organization that you are leading, you have to start changing the definition of the goal,
mhm,
and make it less about you. And it also again comes from the point of maturity that we made, making it
mhm.
less about you and more about what you can achieve
Mhm.
by working together.
Yeah. And John Maxwell, says something else here that I find interesting, and a few questions here that he asks. The first thing he says here, the second thing he says here, say leaders who are honest with themselves know that they don't have all the answers. And I think that alone should be a reason for us to be more humble. When you know you don't have all the answers, learn that, learn to work and cooperate with your team to provide the answers that you don't have. And a lot of times leaders think they are there to provide all the answers to everybody, and sometimes I think I read the title of this book, um but John Maxwell also has another book on that. But I think the title of the book, if I remember well, one of the books that I saw online was that lead, coach, and mentor by asking questions. You know, and even when we look at the life of the Lord Jesus, a lot of his leadership was questions.
Yep.
He asked people questions to understand what they were thinking, what was going on in their mind. And I believe the best leaders lead by asking their teams questions. Because leaders, one of the beliefs that I have about leadership is that you are not always there to provide the answers. You are there to draw the answers out of your team. If the answers come from you, yeah, that's fine because you're also part of the team. But don't always make it about you, as Adam just said. Because when leaders start wanting their ideas to be promoted all the time, sometimes the best idea doesn't win it. And in a team, we want the best idea to lead to win. So before we go on to the second point here that John Maxwell mentions about what insecure leaders do, they like to control people. John Maxwell asks questions. Consider what happens when you meet your team. He said, do your team members share their thoughts and their ideas more freely? Or they're just waiting for you to say everything that you have to say? The second thing to say are the best ideas, rarely your ideas. Again, the goal is not here to take everybody's idea, to always promote people's ideas, even when you know that their idea will probably not work. No, that's not the goal. But make sure that the best idea for the whole team always wins. The third one he has here say, if you often contribute to ideas, does the discussion quickly move from your idea to the best idea? And are you happy about it? Now, if you feel sad or you feel bad that an idea from the team won the discussion or the best idea that came out was not your idea, then there's some work you have to do on your personal security, and it's going to be hard for you to promote people. Uh, in my church, where again I spent a lot of years volunteering, I remember when I first started with leading with leadership positions, I wanted to provide answers. I wanted people to know that, I was in charge, that I was spending a lot of time researching and trying to inform myself, trying to make sure that everything was on track. But then, to be honest, we didn't make a lot of progress. Yes, there was a set idea, there was a whole agenda, there was strategies for communication from for lack of better words, I'll say marketing, printing flyers, sharing information. But we kept on going around in circle until a few years ago, I believe 4 or 5 years ago, I started more asking people what work, what works for you, how can we do this, how can we approach this. And by receiving more feedback, more answers, and not having all the answers all the time, I was more open to think about what can we do better as a team. And I believe even in companies, especially like if you're working for a person who's non-technical and you're technical, you learn this lesson quickly. You learn the lesson that you are there, not you're there to provide answers to them. They're not there to tell you, oh, I want us to use Java over C Sharp, or I want us to use Google over AWS. They're not there to tell you that. They entrust you to give them the answer. And I believe the best leaders, that's what they do. They entrust their people to give them all the answers. But if you have a lot of ego, you try to provide all the answers, and sometimes you handicap your team.
Actually, I had this problem actually with my team when I started the company. I left Congo 9 years ago. It was a completely different place. Priorities were different, and the world has completely evolved. And priorities of people or the clients or the people who would want our product is completely different. So, of course, a leader is a visionary. Is a person with a complete vision. You want to know where you want to take your team and so on. And John Maxwell talked about the law of navigation. You have to be able to navigate things when you're in leadership. But I also don't live in Congo. So there is something that I learned. It's a liability of foreignness, where, okay, I'm trying to impose stuff that are in America and they only work here. And I realized quickly that I was not gaining anything back from my team. And I will be suggesting, okay, let's work on this or let's work on that. And then, yeah, of course they will agree, but it quickly fails. And that's when I actually realized where, okay, let's now switch gears a little bit here. I started getting more feedback than what I could give. of course, I'm always conducting the debate. So this person bring this idea, this person also bring this idea, and so on. And then I kind of put the verdict on what I think based on the company's values and the goal that we're trying to achieve, where I think we should go. But being in a foreign country, leading far, like 8,000 miles away, if you do not get any feedback from the people who are experiencing the stuff or the solution that you're trying to provide to your customers, it becomes a huge challenge. You can fail. The company was failing, and now actually we are picking ourselves up really pretty well, getting more customers, and because I listened to what was their priority, what actually worked for them, and now we are just building our team based on the suggestion that we had. So the next, go ahead.
Adam, you're making a very good point as far as leading across cultural differences, because as much as we sometimes don't like to admit it, people are different, cultures are different. You know, my sister-in-law was recently in Paris, and she said she was almost losing her mind. She's been here for more than 12 years already. She said the way Europeans do their customer service is way different than the way Americans do it. You know, in America, when back in Congo we used to say the customer is king. In America, they really do give you the best treatment as a customer. In Europe, no, they don't have time for you. And just share with me how challenging it was. You go to a store literally because you're not ready to buy. The owner of the store kicks you out. It's like, oh, if you're not ready to buy, go outside. I need the space. And she could not believe what was going on in her mind. I have a friend, a big brother slash his name is Paul Ponzi, and we're gonna have him on the podcast in the future. He's been leading one of the technological, a small business here in America for over 20 years. He's doing great, in data and SQL and everything about IT consultancy. And then he went back to Congo, trying to implement the company in Congo. Now, after 25 years in America, he had completely forgotten. Maybe he didn't have an idea what was going on in Congo. He said when he got there, the first 2 years were education. He said he had to relearn how things work in a different system. So the point of these stories is just like when you're leading across different teams of different cultures and different backgrounds, the best way to lead is to listen. And especially here in America, where diversity and equity have become such an important decision, an important topic in every organization. The things that there's this store, I think it's called, what it's called, H&M, that printed a T-shirt with I think a monkey on the T-shirt or something like that, or a kid eating a banana or something like that. And you think about stuff like that. I mean, they're funny, we can laugh about them today. And how much money did they lose? Simply because they didn't have someone on the board who would have been like, "Oh, you don't want to do that," and it's important when leaders are leading a diverse team, not just to think about your team as, "Oh, all these are just Americans and everybody will behave the same way," or "All these are just Indians," or "All these are just African." No, people are different, and the only way you can effectively lead a team like that is by asking a lot of questions. My friend and mentor Tyson Bounty actually excel at that. He led a team of more than 35, 40 developers. We had more than 6, 7 different cultures in one single team. And you see everybody, almost everybody connected to him because he asked questions. He wasn't there to provide the answers. He was there to ask questions to the team and find the best answer and then lead the team in the direction of the best answers. So that's very important. The second one, Adam, you're saying you're talking about control.
Yes, I was talking about control. So actually, the conversation that we also had it on Sunday with the friends, it was also over this, and this in all relationships. I mean, leading is developing relationships, and in all relationships, people who are insecure, they try to apply some control. They try to be always in control and checking, micromanaging stuff. Like in a romantic relationship, okay, they check on like, okay, what is she wearing today? How is she looking like today? And is she walking a certain way? Like a person just become completely consumed by those type of stuff that could be so minor, but to them just become important because they're insecure. And John C. Maxwell actually talk about it. He say insecure leaders deal with the issue in a way that they rely on control. They think if they can micromanage their people, they can keep them from making mistakes. And the goal is not actually to avoid always making mistakes, is to learn from mistakes. So it's whenever someone is insecure and they're like, have seen somebody, I had a conversation with someone who's like, quoting the Bible on this and saying that, where your treasure is and also that's where your heart will be. And and I'm like, yeah, that can give you a heart attack if you always just you are like you are a trader, for example, and you put your money somewhere and you keep. That's why I stopped trading. I stopped doing like day trading. I could not, because I put my money there and I'm like, I want to be in control, but your money is going without you controlling anything.
Right.
That's going. Like when Bitcoin failed, oh my, it was crazy, right?
Well, what about Dogecoin?
I had already sold all my Dogecoin, thank God.
You are
But
lucky. You are lucky. You asked me about it. I didn't sleep.
Bitcoin was one that actually hit me, and so with that aspect, like basically control is it's kind of what is used to enforce something on people and to see that, okay, put boundaries. And some people are more accentuated in doing this than others, and I feel like engineers, we are very worse at this part of things, because engineers are producers. We produce, we are result oriented, we are number oriented. So with that, we tend to have to be to try to control everything. And we actually taught, we have a bunch of classes where the class is called control. So we put parameters, we put the input, and we are trying to design the output, while we remove completely the idea of these are not machines, these are not robots, these are people. The margin of error when it comes to human is a way higher than a controller that you can design and put somewhere.
And the last thing here talks about John Maxwell in the second point, insecure. The second point, we're still talking about insecurity can make a leader feel threatened by people development. The last thing that John Maxwell talks about here when it comes to people development is trust. A lot of insecure leaders do not trust their teams. They don't trust their people. Have you seen the type of people who are always thinking that someone is doing something against them, that someone is having a conversation behind their back? I work in one of my jobs, and I won't say which one so that people don't feel singled out and all that, but I work with a leader who was so insecure that every time there was a meeting he was not invited to, he wanted to know what was going on in that meeting.
Oh wow.
And I remember one day he was working remotely, and then we're in a Teams meeting and he couldn't connect. So while he's trying to connect and he's talking, another lady we're working with made a joke that actually didn't go the way we expected it to go. So he said he kept on texting. It was like, man, I can't connect. He texted like 15 times. He was sick. He was at home. They told him to rest, but he wanted so bad to participate in the meeting. And he kept on saying, I can't log in. And then the lady responded to him, hey, it's because you've been fired. And he did not like that. He started calling everybody on the table. What's going on? Did I do something wrong? I was like, bro, it's just a joke, And we always, if you've been in corporate for a minute, you always know the joke, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't log in. My login is not working. It's like, because you've probably been fired, And never, to me, I never thought about it as, a lot of companies used to do that. When they want to fire people, they just disable your access. And they'll be like, hey, we laid off. And I think Microsoft actually did that lately. They said a lot of, I was reading some post on LinkedIn that actually broke my heart.
Yeah.
where people woke up. They just heard about the news that they were going to lay off 10,000 people and stuff. They woke up in the morning and they no longer had access to anything. Twitter, Elon Musk, I think, excelled at that. He was just, disabling access for people left and right and things like that. And because that person was so insecure about themselves, he actually caused us to have kind of a toxic environment because he wanted to a point where people were scared that he was actually setting recorders in people's offices, and that was just so benign, and how low insecurity and lack of trust of people can actually take you. John Maxwell says here that if you want to become a people development leader, in conclusion, you must give others your trust and earn their trust in return. You cannot be a level 4 leader until you trust people. Because to develop people, you have to trust them. To give people responsibilities, you have to trust them. You have to trust them. Even if they're not going to do the job as good as you, they can at least get it to 80% done. And the third point here, John Maxwell talks about the downside of people development. He talks about short-sightedness can keep leaders from seeing the need of people development.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest dangers I've seen with leaders is to think that they will always be there forever. Is to think that sicknesses do not exist. Is to think that we live in such a perfect world that the company will always need them and they will always be there to provide the services. The day I realized, and this is one thing I think this gentleman in South Africa, I forgot his name. I think his name is Vuti or something like that. He's also a public speaker. One of the things he said between the difference, one of the big difference he said between entrepreneurship and business ownership. He said when you're a business owner, you can go on vacation and keep the business running. Most business owners, they are the CEO, the chief everything officer, they're the employees, they're the workers, they do everything. The day they're not there, their business is not going on.
Yep.
An entrepreneur, on the other hand, actually has a company working. Of course, at the beginning, you put in all the work, but at some point, you can step away from the business and the business keeps on running. And a lot of leaders don't think about it that way. They always think, especially those who create businesses, they always think that I will always be needed. Have you ever been in a company where when the leader is not there, there's certain things you cannot access?
Yeah.
There's a certain file nobody can access because only the leader has access to it. And I think Dave Friedman talked about it when he was here, learning how to empower your employees. If your employees cannot get to a point of giving answers to the customer, you will always be frustrated. You will always be stressed because all the little bitty problems will always have to land back on your table. And as I was saying before, one of my biggest goals as a leader is to work myself out of a job. And the way I do that, I train as many people as I possibly can so that they don't always have to depend on me and they can solve problems on their own without coming back to me.
Short-sightedness can really hurt leadership. Actually, you cannot be a leader and short-sighted at the same time, because I mentioned this in the few times in the previous episode that a leader visionary is a person who tests the water for everybody else and really just check on the unknown. You are a pioneer, and this is something I repeat to the people at Bora that I'm leading every single day, is that we are pioneering something great that will have a great impact in the world and in developing the world. So when you are short-sighted, you cannot really lead, because to become, like he's saying here, to become a developer of people, you have to be willing to adopt a long-term mindset. Of course, to keep things going slowly, you need to have those, the small wins, but there has to be a plan that is leading you in the long term. And something that's marked me from this particular, because it's a very short discussion that he has, but he said this, helping another person to become a competent leader almost always takes longer than you think and is more difficult than you expect. You must do it anyway. Otherwise, you limit the potential for yourself, your people, and your organization. So when you are not investing on other people, when you are not nearing the work, and you are letting the issues that we just talked about earlier, like the ego, the lack of trust, and they try to always impose control. If you're letting that consume you when you are trying to develop other people, it hurts everyone. It hurts you, your organization, and the people. And at the end, you're gonna end up failing. And yeah, and the next one, the next point here is he talked about lack of commitments can keep leaders from doing the hard work of people development. And he says something that is crucial here. He said, anyone who can relate well with people, produce personally, and communicate a vision is capable of attracting a following. You can have people follow you by your knowledge. You can have people follow you by the wisdom that you're providing and the products or the productivity that you are bringing, or you are in the winning team. But that doesn't keep you there. Productivity alone cannot keep you in leadership, because what happens when you cannot produce anymore? And it's very crucial here in this point.
And I think it continues to on that quote, Adam. It say, however, attracting, developing, and leading other leaders is much more difficult. And most leaders are not willing to put forth the tremendous effort it takes and to make the sacrifices necessary to do it. And trust me, it takes a lot of effort to develop people. And I commend a lot of my mentors for spending time with me. I commend a lot of the people that invested in me to become the person that I am today and to continue to become the person that I will be in the future. Because I look at how, what I was and when I started this journey 12, 13 years ago, back in 2010, 2011, when I started this journey on personal development and leadership. I look at how far I've come and the people that have been there around me to help me during that moment. And sometimes I'm like, am I capable right now to invest 13 years of my life in somebody else's life? To pour out that time, because I've had people that have been with me for the last 13 years. Am I willing to do the same thing for another person? And I was reading a book here. I never actually read the whole book. I just read the introduction. The title of the book is Learning to Lead Like Jesus. And in that book, it said that Jesus wasn't showing up on a Wednesday and then leaving. He stayed with his disciples for 3 years. For 3 years, he was pouring into them, investing into them. And sometimes it's hard work. Now, now that my son is growing up, he's going to be a year soon, which is crazy about how fast this time is going by. But recently, we've been trying to train him on how to, to feed himself and to do those little things that we take for granted because we've just done them so many times that we don't think about them anymore. But I was looking at Adam Blaze. One day, I gave him a banana, and he was eating the banana slowly. He was really taking his time, and I'm trying to move on. I'm trying to do something else to with him. I'm trying to change his diapers and all that. It would have been much easier for me to just take a spoon and feed him. But the process of just watching him doing it and learning it guarantees me that he may take my time today, but tomorrow he will feed himself and will no longer need me. And that's, I think, that's the way I think about people development. When you do it, it takes your time, it takes your energy, it takes your effort today. But tomorrow, the same people will not need you, and that will free up a lot more of your time that you can do something else. And one of the things that we talked about here before on the podcast is that leaders should always be able to see further than others when they're leading an organization. And when you are always in the roots, when you are always working in the weeds, sometimes you lose sight of the future. And when you do that, your organization will become stagnant and you will never be able to move. Adam, do you have anything else on that one, or can we move for the last
No, I
10
think
minutes on the
we
best
can move
behaviors to
to the
adopt?
best behavior.
All
Yeah,
right,
and
so the best behaviors. Go ahead.
yes, I want to, yeah, I wanted to start mentioning a few things on the best behavior here.
Mhm,
That we have talked about the essential or the downside um, of people development, while also
mhm.
encouraging people to still develop other leaders.
Right.
But when it comes to the best behavior, is that John Maxwell mentions a few things. He talked about intention and intentionality here. And he said a well-intentioned person with no leadership knowledge and experience cannot train another person to lead. This is so important. Theorists who study leadership without practicing it cannot equip someone to lead. No more.
It's like learning to swim from a book.
Exactly. That's pretty much it. So you cannot really equip another person. It's like I heard a story recently that a person that has just converted and just literally just came to Christ and is like very young, less than 23 years old, just came to Christ and now has been given a leadership of a church. Literally, like wow. I'm just scared of how dangerous that can be. I've been Christian for more than 10 years now that I accepted Christ. But leadership of the church is one of the things that I want to lead a company. I want to lead an organization, anything, NGO, anywhere. But when it comes to leadership of the church, I want to take that with a lot of reverence. And it takes a lot of experience to be able to handle the level of pressure and stuff that's happened there. So he'd say it takes a leader to know a leader. It takes a leader to show a leader, and it takes a leader to grow a leader.
Yeah. And the first thing John Maxwell mentions here right after the introduction is say the best behaviors to adopt on level 4 is learning recruiting, finding the best people possible. Listen, I don't care how great of a leader you are. If you don't have a good team, it's going to be hard for you to develop and raise leaders to that level. If all your team is full of followers, if all your team is full of people who do not, there's nothing wrong with not being ambitious. There's nothing wrong with just wanting to, work 9 to 5 and go back home. There's nothing wrong with it, to be honest. But if you are looking for people to pour yourself into and develop, then you need to change your recruiting process. I borrow technology right now. A lot of people that are being recruited need to think about the future, need to think about enduring the Africa of tomorrow, need to make a lot of sacrifices about, maybe you can go a week without a paycheck. Maybe you can go a month without a paycheck. But you believe in a vision that's much greater. Now, if someone wants to join Bora and the only thing they're very concerned about is how much money they're going to get at the end of the month, they may be disappointed. They may be disappointed because the company is not there yet, And when you have a business like that, an idea that is trying to revolutionize the whole continent or the world, then you need to spend a lot of time investing in how you're recruiting the people. I've always believed that one of the best places to learn leadership is in a nonprofit, whether it's a church, is a mosque, or whether it's a nonprofit organization where people are not coming for a paycheck. And that's when you start learning about putting the best people on your team. Because if the person is not motivated to do the work, the person doesn't want to get involved into the work, it doesn't matter how great of a leader you are, that organization will not move forward. So recruiting the best people. And a quote here, it says that if you get the best players and coach them soundly, you are going to win. And that was Bobby Bowden that said that. If even the best coach, even Coach Phil, you give Coach Phil a team in Eastern Congo and you want Coach Phil to bring them to America and take them to the NBA final in the first year, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You just need to have the players that have the ability, and then the coaching becomes much more effective and much more easy.
After you've had the players, you need to actually know where they can play, which position. You learn this if you played soccer before, because in soccer, every point, in basketball, you can have point guard, a defender, whatever, and people can exchange each other, can play different position, offense, defense, or whatever. In soccer, the defenders got to be really good. The midfielders got to be really good at midfield, and the offensive line has to be really great at their job. So you have to know where you are placing the right people. You are putting the right people in the right position. That is something that I learned at Bora. And again, it takes building leadership from level 1 to level 2 to level 3
Mm-hmm.
and then reaching this level. So you have to know your players, you spend time with them, you know what interests them, you know what are their skills, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, so you can place them in the right position.
Right, and if you allow, I'll just read these 4 C's that are important when you are recruiting, that John Maxwell mentions here, and then we move. We're trying to finish up at least with this level today, so that we can finish. I'll talk quickly about level 5 next week. We both don't have a lot of experience on level 5. That's something that may happen in a few years from now for all of us, because level 5 is pretty much a pinnacle level, and yeah, it takes time to get there. It
It
really.
really does. It really
Yeah.
does.
So John Maxwell here, he says the 4 things, the 4 C's that you need to consider when you're recruiting people. The first one is chemistry. How well does the person fit within your team and the vision of your team? That's why interviewing is very important. And of course, people can fake their interview. That's why it's important to spend time really researching the person, uh, asking questions, not just about the job, about their personality and all that. How well do the person fit in the chemistry of the job? You say all things being equal, people like to work with people they like. All things not being equal, they still like to work with the people they like. That's just
Yep.
the reality. The second C talks about here is character. And it says that character is what closes the gap between knowing and doing. Jim Rohn actually observed that good people are found, not changed. You don't change people. The good people, you find them, and you build on them and on the experience. The third one that John Maxwell talks about here is capacity. How well can the person do the job? The person can have great character. He may be a good fit for your team as far as the chemistry is concerned, but can they actually do the job? Can you actually teach them the job? As much as I'm a great person, I believe I am. Not to brag on myself, but I think you'll be happy to have me on your team. But as much as I think I'm a good person, as much as I think I may not be, but as much as I think I am, as much as I think that I try to work on my character, I won't do well on a team of surgeon. If you bring me in a surgery room, you got me, you got the wrong person. As much as Shaquille O'Neal is a great guy with a great attitude, I don't think he will do very well on a ballet team. He just can't, without mass, he just can't do ballet. So you have to also understand, is this person capable of doing the job that they're promoting themselves to, or they're trying to apply to? And the last one is contribution. If I've had good players, and that's La also that said it. He said, I've had good players and I've had bad players. I'm a better coach with good players, and everybody is. And if you want to be a better leader, sometimes, most of the times, you want to have good players on your team. Of course, you can always train, you can always invest, but if at the beginning, at the initial level, the players that you're trying to build and invest in are not good, it's just going to take you much more time. And I want to clarify something. When we say someone is not good, it's not that he's not a good person. No, he's not a good team member for the type of work and the type of team that you have. They can be a perfect fit for another team and for another job. So just to keep that in consideration.
Yes, and there's a quote that I'm going to add to that, as well as you say. It's not enough to just to recruit, just to have good players. A leader must understand how those players best fit on the team and put them there. You want to check what position they can play based on their character, based on the chemistry you have with them, based on their capacity, and based on the contribution that they can add to your team. So you wanna use that as a selection criteria, and also you wanna add it there. And it's important.
It's
because
pretty much cover the second point.
Yes, and you have to really know where you are, like who you need, and because positions, they are, as a leader who's trying to multiply, who's producing other leaders, you need to know what the void that you want to fill, and find the right type of person. That is one thing that, if God has blessed me with one thing in the world, is the ability to put the right people in the right places. And I have done that through my networking skills. That also God has blessed me to be a very outgoing person. So my
Mhm.
networking skills, getting to know people at the personal level, developing relationships with people, like at the friends relationship with people, and I
Mhm.
know something about them. I have this habit that now that I've adopted since 2023 started, that every time I meet somebody, I have a conversation with them and we exchange contact and numbers. iPhone give you an option to put notes under the contact. And
Mhm.
in that note, I write everything that I think that are relevant about that person and how special they are and everything that I've learned from them that day. That's
Mhm.
if anywhere I would need somebody that I want to
Mhm.
place somewhere, I already know that, hey, this is the goal of this person. This is where they're going in
Mhm.
life. And this is what they're trying to accomplish. So I do my best to stay, I believe, faithful in that way of thinking. And
And actually,
I'm gonna,
Adam, a lot of leaders, world leaders, do that all the time. That's why they have briefings with people. When the president of that state is going to meet the president of Russia or China or South Africa, they actually bring him a briefing to tell him what did they discuss the last time they met, what were their
yeah,
goals and stuff like that. And I think I also started adopting that thing, and which you've known me for a few months, more than a few months now, almost a year going to, about every time you meet someone, try to remember their story. Try
yeah,
to remember what they tell you, and it's very crucial and very important to help you position them. And I think Adam just covered the second point, which is positioning, placing the right people in the right position. The third one here, modeling. John Maxwell talks about the best behaviors again to adopt on level 4, showing other people how to lead. And that's very crucial. Now, in order to show someone how to lead, the person needs to have the potential leadership. The person needs to want to grow. The person needs to want to know how to lead. If the person is willing to know all that, then yeah, you can show them. But if they're not, then you may find yourself wasting your time. So John Maxwell talks about a few things here. He said, he talks about authenticity. He said this is the foundation for developing people. Servanthood, this is the soul for developing people. Growth, this is the measurement for developing people. Excellence, this is the standard for developing people. Passion, this is the fuel for developing people. Success, this is the purpose for developing people. And then he talks about a story here of about Mahatma Gandhi, who one day a mother came to see him and told him, my son won't stop eating sugar. Can you talk to him so he will stop doing that? Talking about authenticity. And Mahatma Gandhi said, I can't do that right now. Can you come back with him in 6 months or after a period of time? And then the mother came back with the son after the time that they had agreed on. And Mahatma Gandhi took the son and told him that sugar was not good for his health. And then the mother asked, why didn't you tell me last time that you couldn't do it? And Mahatma Gandhi said that because I was still eating sugar myself. I wasn't going to tell this kid to stop eating sugar while I'm still eating sugar. So modeling, showing other people how to lead. You cannot tell people to do things that you yourself you are not willing to put in the work and to do for others.
and in short, just to summarize what you just say, is that don't be a motivational speaker. I I don't have anything wrong with motivational speakers, but I do believe that somebody would tell you that I started my business with a grain of salt. And yeah, they would try to fire you up and try to encourage you into something that them themselves have not really experienced. And I
Mhm,
really don't speak on stuff that I have no experience on. Like, it just,
mhm,
I try to stay safe. Of course, there's the embarrassment that comes up when you're expected to intervene on something and you really just don't know. And
mhm,
honesty. One thing about being a scientist that I've learned while being a scientist is some of these things, authenticity in the stuff that you
mhm,
do, excellence and success, like excellence and success. In science, that is important. Don't just go there and say whatever. We
mhm,
actually have, to get a PhD, we take a qualifying exam. And on that qualifying exam, every time I'm helping people prepare, because I took it and I learned,
mhm,
of course, a bunch of my lessons, because before that, I was the type of
mhm,
guy who I don't want to feel like I'm losing, right? I would just come up
mhm,
with some type of a reasonable explanation to stuff.
mhm,
But after
mhm,
taking that exam, I saw that now I would gain a lot of wisdom to the point where I tell other
mhm,
people that, hey, when you don't know, the best answer is to say, you don't know. and you are willing to find out.
Mm.
That is, it keeps you authentic, and it
Mm-hmm.
shows that you have room for growth,
Mm.
and you can also show passion, and it can also
Mm-hmm.
lead you to a lot of success. So it's a one way that I also
Mm.
empower people. When you don't know the answer, don't
Absolutely.
waste people's time.
Absolutely. I know we're already about 5 minutes over the time, so we're going to go through these the remainder of the point a little faster. You can always check them up in the book, and we've been discussing about this stuff. It's just that now is formalizing them and putting them into more bullet point type of notes. The last thing, the fourth thing it says here, but it's about equipping, helping others do their jobs well. If you want to develop others, give them the tools they need to do their job well. Don't send someone to build a house unless you've given them the tools to build a house. And a lot of leaders do that to set people for failure, especially insecure leaders. They give you a big task, a major task for the company, knowing that you don't have the ability and the competency to do that. I have a friend of mine who got promoted to an almost C-level position, on a vice president position, and as soon as he got the job, his budget was sliced by two. And then he went back to the person who's reporting to us, like, how do you expect me to hire professionals with this type of budget? And they had to review it to bring him, say, listen, if you want to help people, give them, equip them to do their job well. You want to tackle the fifth one, Adam?
Yes. So on the fifth one, he talked about developing and teaching them to do life well.
Mm,
Reputation is everything.
mm,
Character, the way you build people, the way
mm,
they behave. If you are a salesman and you don't have
mm,
the right type of character, it's a complete failure. And he said the
mhm,
individual leads in order that those who are led can develop their potential as human beings and therefore and thereby prosper. We
mm,
have one thing that we all share is the
mhm,
principle of humanity, being human,
mm,
which means we can all relate with all the different experiences. You don't
mhm,
want to have, you don't want to reproduce leaders that are just going to
mhm,
be terrible people in the society. And you want to make
mhm,
sure that you are having the best people to do that. And he gave a few points here. He talked about how to assess them, how to challenge them, and how to support
mhm,
them while you teach them
mhm.
how to lead.
Absolutely. On the sixth point here, John Maxwell talks about empowering, helping, enabling people to succeed. Theodore Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt said, "The best executive is the one who has a sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and self-restraint enough to keep on meddling with them while they do it." In other words, when you give someone a task to do, your job is to equip them and help them to do it. But don't keep on coming back to the person and say, add some sugar here. So I lived alone in Uganda for a while, and I was cooking alone. But when I moved to America, I think I got lazy. I had my sister-in-law that was cooking for me, and then I moved in with my mom that was cooking for me, and then I got married. So recently I was like, I need to get back to it. I don't want to be strained on an island, and then I don't even know how to to cook. And Plamidi has been, getting back to helping me to cook. But a lot of times, once she's teaching me to cook, she'll be like, "Hey, you forgot to add some salt." And the other day, I was telling her, "How am I going to learn if I don't eat my food and it doesn't have salt?" And it's just funny because she's just a caring person that she wants you to do things the right way, right? And she keeps on coming back to you. And then at some point, she was just like, "You know what? I'll let you do it." And then we had some oversalted eggs omelette, and I learned my lesson. So now I go back to her. So give people the opportunity to come back to you, but don't keep on meddling with what they're doing while they're doing it because they're not learning. And the last one, Adam.
Yeah, the last point here is talking about measuring. This, I believe, is the most important thing from the entire book, from where we started until where we are right now. Because again, since
Mm,
this is where actually that at my experience, this is where I've reached with my
mhm,
age, and as I'm
mm,
still growing, this is where I have reached so far.
mhm,
Is the level of
mm,
measuring, evaluating those whom you develop to maximize their effort. The
mm,
only way people know that the effectiveness of your leadership is through the result that is being produced by the people that you are leading when you're not there. He talks about,
That's right.
He gives an example of a coach and a team. The coach doesn't play, it's the players that do all the work on the field. The coach's role is to empower them, is to train them, is to teach them, but the result, you are only a good coach. That's why I take things so personally when we fail or when my students are failing. Because I feel like, what else can I do? Like, I feel a burden in my heart that if the students are failing, it's the student, the teacher who is failing. So you need, he talked about a few points here. He said you need to look into it. So you need to report and I'll decide what to do. So they need to be reporting to you. They need to be reporting alternative, the pros and cons on your recommendation. He talked about look into it. Again, let me know what you intend to do, but don't do it unless I say yes. He talked about look into it again. This again, it's evaluation, it's a measuring level. Let me know what you intend to do and do it unless I say no. And then he say also take action. Let me know what you did. Take action again. No further contact required. So these are kind of like a broken down
Process.
And you can of course read it in so much details in the book. But measuring your success is based on how your team is performing without you being a key player. You are the one on the top and you are just looking at what they are doing and get those results. And that's how you develop people. That's how you actually make sure that, hey, you're not babysitting. You are actually creating people who can, eat solid food, get on their own feet, and get moving.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, is with that we'll be finishing today. Again, next week we try to tackle level 5, the pinnacle level, which again maybe maybe within an hour we try to finish up the upside, the downside, and the best behavior to adopt. I don't even know what are the best behavior you can adopt when you're already on the pinnacle level. But we find out next week. And if if you want to find out in advance, of course, feel free to grab the book. Thanks again for having stick with us here for an extra 12 minutes as we're trying to wrap up the level 4, which is one of the to me, level 2 and level 4 are kind of like the biggest pillars on leadership. Of course, I do not neglect level 1 and level 3, but level 2 and level 4 kind of really just spoke to me personally in so many levels. So thank you so much again for having listened to us. Again, if you have any questions, you can contact us on our Instagram page, Unbounded Growth, or our LinkedIn page by the same name, Unbounded Growth, or you can email us at info@theunboundedgrowth.com. Again, info@theunboundedgrowth.com. Our website is www.theunboundedgrowth.com. On YouTube, we go by the same name, Unbounded Growth. Feel free to like and subscribe, and also we on Spotify. We are now Anchor has become Spotify, as I was saying at the beginning. We are also on Stitcher. We are on Amazon Music. We are on Apple Podcasts for most of our listeners actually listening from Apple devices. And we are also on Google Podcasts where some people like me do listen to podcasts, So we're excited to have you again next week. And then as we promised, our very last episode this season, that will be episode 19, I believe. We'll be having Montage Woods, and we already be telling you, posting out a few stuff about how the discussion went and the things that we talked about to just kind of prep the ground for you, and we hope that you enjoy and be excited about that as well. Anything else, Adam?
Oh, that's all on my side. And again, we have a conference coming up that we are preparing. So you guys, you'll stay tuned about it. And we will also show how you can support and how you can really just help us get to this, to the level that we're trying to reach in the how to do reproducing other leaders in our communities.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure having you all here, and we hope that you all have a great week. God bless you, and we'll be seeing you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.